Hey, what's up guys? So in the last video I didn't have enough time, so I rushed out a video, but apparently you guys like that a lot more than my 10 previous uploads, so we're gonna do the same thing. Anyways, Escape Room Tournament of Champions picks up right after the first one and follows Zoey and Ben as they try to expose Minos, the company that creates these deadly escape rooms. However, before they know it, the pair finds themselves in another death game, this time with 4 other people who have also won their previous traps. It is 6 people in total, but I guess they could only fit 5 people on the cover, so one guy's left out. Bad luck there. Like many others have pointed out, at this point it's basically like the Saw franchise, but without the cringe. And by cringe I don't mean like, dude, John Kramer in a snapback is so cringe. I mean more like there's none of the intense violence that Saw had. And while this makes it a lot more accessible to the average viewer, it also lacks the horror aspect. The fear in Saw came from the fact that the traps were so violent. This movie, on the other hand, kind of feels like Saw 2 for preschoolers. And while we're on the topic of traps, some of the death games here have such a goofy design. I swear to God there is one trap in this movie where to get out, one of the characters uses candy bars to escape. Is this like a trick to attract a younger audience? Hey kids, are you alone? Yeah, well, come over here, we have some candy for you. And there were a few moments like that where I was thinking, is Sony trying to pull a prank on us here? What's going on? For example, at one point, Zoey stops for a second to think about her best memories with Ben. But the only thing she remembers is a moment where Ben let her go to the bathroom. She's like, hey, you can go before me. And Ben says, no, it's okay, you can go. That's your nicest memory of Ben? If I saw that without context, I would think they just met in front of an Arby's bathroom. Not that they went through a life-threatening event together. Then again, I guess entering an Arby's bathroom is life-threatening. And there were 2 people in the cinema that when Zoey remembered this, started laughing. Wasn't me though. Now the movie as a whole is really fast-paced and surprisingly a lot of fun. However, the more you think about it, the less sense it makes. It's not a problem because the movie doesn't take itself too seriously anyway, and it knows exactly what it's going for. But already the way that Zoey and Ben end up in the escape room this time raises a lot of questions. Much like in the Saw movies, the people behind the game seem to know every detail and exact step everyone will take. From the beginning to the end, Minos is able to predict everything perfectly. The only way it makes sense is if the escape room company has rebuilt the entire planet with 7 billion clones and everyone is in on it. What happens is that Zoey and Ben chase a thief into a subway train and inside the last car, but then the criminal jumps out. The door closes and the subway drives off. Shortly after, their car decouples and now they're in the first trap. But what if Ben was a little bit more athletic and was able to stop the thief? What if one of the 200 people at the subway station bumps into the man? Then they would catch him and the entire game wouldn't take place. And how was Minos able to ensure that only these 6 people end up in the subway car? From what we see, anyone can walk into it. So if the subway was packed with people, I guess there would be 30 other guys playing the game as well, people who have no idea what the hell is going on. Also in the subway is a bag of tools that the group needs to complete the first room. But what if someone stole it earlier? Would Minos let them go and tell Zoey, oh, we'll let you go now and kidnap you some other time? Luckily, the movie plays it off very well and it's kind of like, it just happens. And that, I think, is much better than trying to over-explain everything, which usually brings up a lot more questions than it answers. I also like that it focused on the games. There isn't some side story that no one gives a shit about that's happening in the background. It's just death games. But the first trap seems to be completely rigged. It's the one we see in the trailer, the one in the subway. In it, they must solve a puzzle as the risk of getting electrocuted slowly increases. But in that game, someone will stand up or move and get electrocuted. Then later on, someone else will do the exact same thing and nothing happens. That seems less like electricity and more like a spell from Harry Potter. At one point, everyone is standing completely still, following the rules, doing nothing wrong, and then the train just randomly zaps somebody, and it's like, what the hell did that guy do? Maybe it's physics, I don't know. There are also times where someone gets hurt or stuck, and someone in the group will say, wait, we can still save him. And then there are other times where they're just like, fuck it, I don't give a shit, let's just keep going. I would hate to be one of those guys. And oh my god, this movie looks really beautiful. Sometimes a little bit too clean and polished, which leads to there being nothing scary. Like, oh no, it's the beach. I have so many tormenting memories of the sun and the sand. Come on, the only thing that's scary about the beach is when you get a little bit of sand in your butt. Again, if you compare it to Saw, what made that scary were the dingy, dark locations that made you feel uncomfortable. Here, the locations are not scary at all. But I did like the main characters. You can see Zoey grow and become more confident than she was last time. Ben gets smarter and improves his escape room skills slightly. He's no longer as useless as a plastic bag flying around in the wind like it was last time. However, there was one thing that I already found weird in the original that continues here. And that is that Minos has this main building that Zoey tries to find. And where do they decide to hide their super secret headquarters? In the middle of Manhattan. In the beginning, they try to track down the building, and Zoey says something like, "This place is off the map, a total black hole." But then there are people walking by not 100 feet away, and there's a car parked outside. I mean, isn't it kind of risky to hide your kidnapping ring in one of the most densely populated cities on Earth, where at least 50 sets of eyes are on you at all times? But there were certain parts of the movie where I am convinced that someone is messing with the audience. This requires more details, so we're going to go into the spoiler section now. Now, there was one weird moment that stood out to me towards the beginning. In the first trap, it says that all false advertising must be pulled. What that means is they need to find missing letters in the ad posters in the train, and that will help them solve the puzzle. But the last 3 letters come from a map in the subway. A map is not an advertisement. I'm saying that because they specify that it must be advertising, and then they break their own rules 2 minutes later. After the first room, everyone introduces themselves and reveals the games they were in the first time around. And the other games sound really bizarre. One of the guys reveals that in his escape room there were only priests, and there was another one with 5 influencers. Kill me now. Where did Minos come up with these ideas? These are the most random things that I've ever heard in my entire life. Then in the third room, they're in the beach trap. At the end of that sequence, Ben disappears in a pit of quicksand, and the 3 remaining people make their way into the next room, which is a street in Manhattan. There, acid rains from the ceiling in certain intervals. In order to get out of there alive, they must stand under a small acid-proof roof while solving the puzzle. Then there's a phone booth ringing, and to access it, they need to dissolve the chain that's locking it. They collect some of the acid rain in a cup and pour it on the chain to dissolve it. But if it rains acid from the ceiling and the phone booth is in the middle of the room, shouldn't the acid already rain on the chain? There's nothing indicating that the phone booth is free from the rain, and if it is, they could just stand there the whole time. After that puzzle came the part that honestly left me kind of speechless. So Zoey is the only one that makes it to the last room. When she walks in, Amanda appears and reveals that after the death game she was in the first movie, she started working for Minos and designed all of the traps from this movie. Okay, so Amanda works together with the people behind the game to create the next traps. Sound like anyone you know? There is no way that is a coincidence. This combined with that one trap that required candy and that weird toilet flashback, it kinda seems like Sony's trying to prank us. But anyway, Amanda reveals that they forced her to work for them, otherwise they would kill anyone she loved, so she had to do it. After that, Amanda tells Zoey that now she must design the next game, otherwise Ben will die. It turns out that he's still alive and he didn't die when he fell into the hole. He's currently in a room next to them, separated by a glass wall. At this point, Minos is basically a pyramid scheme. In order to get what she wants, Amanda must now recruit people below her to design the traps. But Zoey refuses and starts a fire in the room, which breaks the glass to Ben. Her plan does work and they do get reunited, but I have a lot of questions. How did Zoey think that starting a massive fire in what looks like an unventilated closed space is a good idea? And what happens to all the smoke from the fire? Did it just disappear? And if there were big air ducts for the smoke to vanish, why would Minos put that into this room? Why would they provide an alternative exit when they wanted to force Zoey into picking between letting Ben die and building the next set of escape rooms? Anyway, they make it out of the last trap and go into this huge underground hall. This is where all the traps are, and this place is like the size of Central Park. Now, from what I understand, this is still in Manhattan. How did they get the permits for any of this? Or did no one in New York figure out that there's an entire underground city full of escape rooms? I'm telling you, Minos must have bribed every person in New York for this to work. So during the final minutes, they set up another sequel. You know, Ben and Zoey think they're free, but then it turns out that they're already in the next trap. What happened to Amanda? I don't know. And this film ends very similarly to Spiral. It cuts off very abruptly. Like right as the last person ends their sentence, the credits roll. I guess it does save unnecessary time, but it's a little bit jarring and too fast. I mean, as the last word is said, the movie cuts off like this. And even though the film itself is very pretty, the end credits, which look like these 3D rendered animations, they look like something right off of a PlayStation 2 disc. As a whole, I'd say it's totally ridiculous, but really fun. The movie knows it's being unrealistic and chooses to focus on what's going to keep the target audience engaged. And if you go in expecting that, you can have a good time. Alright, so Escape Room 2. Have you seen it? Let me know what you think. Anyways, as always, I hope you liked it and that I get to see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.